Hello everyone, Ceri the Crafter here, that's C-E-R-I the Crafter, and yep, you've guessed it, it's art journal time again. Now, today's art journal page was inspired by somebody who I watched on YouTube. Her name is Kylie Coo Studio, so that's K-Y-L-I-E space C-O-O space studio. I will definitely put a link to the original video that I saw, so if you look down in that corner there's a little grey V, or sometimes it says read more. Click on that and there'll be a link through there. Kylie does have a Facebook page as well. I've got a feeling she has a Facebook group as well. Very talented Scottish lady, has a wonderful melodical accent to actually listen to while she's creating, giving tutorials. Very talented artist. Go and see her, go subscribe to her channel. She was fabulous. And she came up with this art, it might have been called something like texturing and layering. And it was based around a PM artist studio Dragonfly mask, which she made look like a fossil. And therein lies the quirky thing about this day. Okay, I watched Kylie's Kylie's video in the afternoon of a certain day. Now, that morning I had taken a little camera and I'd gone to the museum. And the reason I went to the museum is because the National Museum of Wales is a big museum, and I actually, let's get out of that. I don't want that to happen. I don't like to set the clock on my camera because I've got a feeling it then put the time in front of every picture, but I don't know that's true. Anyway, so I went to the museum and let's see if I can get this close. I'm not sure how much you're going to see of this. However, guess what I've been photographing? Oh, besides a bunch of flowers, obviously. I've been photographing fossils because I've got a project coming up that I wanted to create for an Etsy product, and I've been photographing fossils. So there you go. So I took it as a sign from above, or wherever it was from, that yes, that's what my art journal page is inspired by. But anyway, I came back in the morning after being to the museum. Then I had a bit of lunch, and at lunch I was actually answering all my comments, because you know me, I answer all comments, maybe not immediately, but I do them. And one of the comments actually said, have you actually checked out Kylie Coo in the UK? Because she's done some lovely work with texture and layering. So obviously clicked the link, went through, found it, watched the video and went, wow, I love this. So this morning I actually sent a private message to Kylie to ask her permission to actually do this, and she said she would love for me to show my spin on what she did. So go and see her video, it's fabulous. So without further ado, I'm going to dive straight in and do my version of it. And there's a little story to go along with it as well, because it'll make sense as we do it. So first things first, I need to choose some background tissue papers. Now, this is my box of tissue papers. Well, actually, that's not mine. That's Patricia's from PM Artist Studio. And as you can see, I have dragonflies in here, as if a sign, but I keep all of my clean-up tissue papers as I go along, and this is where they reside, and then I use them in collage. Now, I'm only using gift wrap tissue paper, although I have ordered some carnival tissue paper, because apparently the carnival tissue paper is meant for use with wet glue, so it doesn't deteriorate as quickly. So I need to go through this box, basically, and pull out things that will fit within. That's not a bit of tissue paper, what's that? So what I need to do now is I'm purely just creating a background. As you know, if you've seen the video, let's turn the page. This was just a Reader's Digest gardening book that I've turned into my art journal, and the pages normally look like that. So I've just put some white gesso on here to give it a bit of a tooth, to give it something for the paints and the mediums to stick onto, because the pages, if you see, they are slightly shiny, and I always prep my pages that way because it knocks the text slightly into the background. It may be seen, it may never be seen. But what I want to do is I want to come in and create. So I'm just going to be doing some tearing. Right, so I need to do some thinking. I think this little so-and-so needs to go over here. And this is all about just working out. Let's wipe the slate. We like the pieces, we don't necessarily like the placement. So I'm going to take this bit off here. I would like to keep this piece to almost like earthy tones. I'm trying to keep in the back of my mind things like the desert, stone, hot, a very warm colour palette. But I think I want to put those three on. I've got all my other bits here, and we'll add them as I go along. So what am I going to put them on with? I've got a ceramic tile now, because I know that you're all just interested in this and not me gluing and brushing and stuff. This is off to one side. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use, I use Liquitex acrylics matte medium gel to stick my stuff down with. I learned of this from Froyle Davis, who's a New Zealand artist, who again, absolutely love her work. Sorry, the burbling noises are the tube, because the tube is nearly out. So all of the unfortunate noises you're hearing are not being made by me. They're being made by this. So I want to get this down. Now, there's one thing I do know about using jelly prints on tissue paper, well, jelly prints on anything pretty much, is if I get the piece too wet by over brushing it once it's in place, the acrylic paint is going to reactivate and move. So I've made that mistake many a time. So I just want to get it on there and leave it on there. There's going to be layers of stuff over the top, so I'm not overly worried that things are going to start to move. But see, I just can't stop fiddling. That's my problem. So that's nice out. I want this bit down here. And I don't mind if things get covered up or overlap later on, because it's all about the interest in the layers for me. That's what intrigues me. That's what makes things work for me. Put that down there. Make sure it goes into the spine of the book. So anyway, I was going to tell you why there's a story attached to this as well. Just while I'm sticking the main pieces down. I'll try not talk all the way through it, but we'll see where I get to. When I went through schooling, which is, well, I left school in 1977, so that'll give you sort of a time span as to when I was in school. We had a careers officer, which I think all schools have nowadays, and you basically had a meeting with the careers officer, and he would try and help you sort out what your careers were going to be, or your career was going to be. Little did he know that I was going to have a really random career. Not his fault. It was just he had no idea what I had potentially. And he sort of had criteria. You either worked in a factory, you became a mechanic, or you worked in a shop. It was a very narrow-minded and blinkered educational system, and I didn't appreciate it, to be honest with you, because I felt that I missed out on life opportunities in retrospect, because there were so many other things I probably would have done had I have known that they were options to start with. See, that's what you get with gift wrap tissue. It tends to tear quite easy if it gets too wet. So once it's done, you had to be careful. And also, this is another example of me spending too much time brushing, and I've reactivated the stuff underneath it. So basically, those were kind of the options I was given, and I was like, okay, so me being me, I thought that's what this is about. That's what you do, because when you're, I think I was 16 at the time, I tended not to question adults because I was taught not to question adults. Adults knew everything, and teachers certainly not meant to be challenged. So I went along with it, and I ended up, when I left school, I ended up working as a fry cook. So not the most exciting thing, especially when you look at what I've achieved in my life now. A bit disappointing that was what I had. However, when I was 16, I went on an archaeological dig here in Wales. There was a shout out put out. They were looking for teenagers to go and excavate a castle on the Gower coast of Wales. And well, I lived in Wales, and the Gower isn't a million miles away. I wanted to do it. So I think it was for a month. I was living under canvas. A friend of mine also did it. Glyn, I think his name was. I have no idea where on the planet Glyn is nowadays. So I went and did this and absolutely loved it. So every day we'd be out on the site and we'd be digging up relics and recording, and we'd be absolutely filthy, and you'd have to cook for yourself. And I remember boiling eggs in my kettle because it was the only thing we had. We had to cook fire, a real fire, because we hadn't got any of the camping equipment you have nowadays. So it was wonderful. It was a beautiful memory, and I loved it. And absolutely, I could easily have become an archaeologist. And if someone had only told me that that was a real thing, that you could become an archaeologist, I probably would have chosen that as my career. But that just wasn't even mentioned to me. I didn't know you could go to art college. I didn't know you could become a dancer. I didn't know you could become an entertainer. Didn't know you could be a scientist. It was just my schooling was lacking considerably as far as options goes. So that's why this is a little bit poignant, really, because I never became an archaeologist. However, one of my main things to watch, if I ever watch things on YouTube that are not crafting, is I'll watch things like, we've got a program here in Britain called Time Team, which is all about archaeologists going out and doing a dig for 3 days in the field and seeing what they find and come up with. And that's one of my favourite programs to this very day. I am fascinated by history and old stuff that's found. Well, I do want to put a bit of dark in there, but how dark do I want to go? I'll put a bit of this. Oh, this is the tissue that I can't tear, isn't it? I really struggle with this tissue. So yes, so unfortunately, I never did that. I never became an archaeologist. However, I think I could quite easily have become, if only my careers teacher had actually, because I did mention it, that I really liked doing that. So I think maybe it was a bit production line career mentoring that was happening at the time, and they basically went, you'll do this, this or this, these are your options. And there you go. Little did they know what I would become, is all I can say. And I'm quite proud of what I've become. So there you go. So my life could have been completely different. I could have been the Welsh Indiana Jones. Yeah, that's probably not going to happen. So I do ride horses, though. Haven't ridden a horse for many years, but I used to ride horses. I do like hats. I don't think I could crack a whip. I'd probably take my eye out. Okay, I'm going to stop that at the moment. Right. I need to think where I'm at the second. So I've got a basic background. Now there's a lot going to go onto this background. Needless to say, a lot onto this background. I'm looking at this, and although I love that stencil, I want to carry the yellowness, or as I keep calling it, like the sand sort of theme over here a bit more. Just put that down there. And I think I want, now I know that there's going to be an image here, and I know there's stuff going down here, and I'm not overly worried about those. I just wanted to create something. I just want to have a look. I'm considering what other colours, because there's quite a wide gap between the intensity of that colour and the intensity of that colour. There's blue here, but there's no blue anywhere else. And if you know me, I do need to balance. And I think this is the piece that's got the blue on it. So I think if I just take a strip of this, if it wants to tear in the correct direction, which it doesn't want to tear in the correct direction, and off you come. There you go. So yes, I must admit, I think I would have found archaeology fascinating, but I'm not sure that all aspects of archaeology would have appealed to me. Out in the field research would definitely have appealed to me. the academic side of it and the studying, maybe not so much. So I was more about, let's go out and dig a hole and see what's in it. I mean, I remember that when we first moved into this house here in Wales, in Cardiff, sorry, the house had been basically gutted and refurbished. It was a pre-war house, and I remember the first thing I did was, a friend of mine, Jane, and we had to try and rescue the garden because the garden was just full of rubble. It was just, well, basically the builders had come in and did exactly what builders always do. They just emptied all the rubbish into the garden and just left it there. So we spent weeks digging through the garden trying to get soil into it so we could put plants in and stuff like that. And in the course of digging, we would find bits of pottery and china and things like that. And granted, it wasn't old, but to us it was a treasure. It was something we found, and so never mind. So yes, I've always like rummaging around in the dirt, should we say. So yeah, it wasn't video games for me as a kid. It was getting out into nature and doing stuff, because we didn't have a lot of money. We didn't have video games. We didn't have, the main thing that money was spent on in my house was food and books. Because a book would help you escape and let your imagination fly. So, okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop the video for a second. Well, more than a second. I'm going to stop the video and get a hairdryer on this, just to get this layer dried, because if I don't get this dried, I can't do the next bit. I want to make this background a little less of a background. Well, that's wrong. A little less of its intensity and colour, but I want to amalgamate and blend so everything becomes one. So I'm just going to come in with little bits of the white gesso, and this is the same gesso that I prepared my page with in the first place. Not that it matters, but just so you know that this is the gesso I was using. So I'm going to come in now. I like to paint with a palette knife. I paint with a credit card quite often as well. You've seen me do that. But I'm going to use a brayer as well in this, just to blend and try not to cover up certain things too much. But when I use the brayer, it's going to add a texture of its own as well. So let's put that on a little bit more down here, because that didn't seem to have enough. So I'll knock that blue back slightly. And I don't want to lose that dragonfly, but I do like the dragonfly to be a hint of a dragonfly. So it's almost puckering. I think that's probably the word I was struggling to find with this. So there you go. So now we've got a lighter background, but you can see there's the hint of stuff coming through. So we're going to be doing this side of the page first. So I sort of need to work out what sort of, this side's a bit sticky, so I might, what sort of arrangement I want for these. And I don't want it to be so predictable. And I must remember, it doesn't have to be all of it. Now, the thing that bothers me is that slightly mirrors that. And don't ask me why that does that. Now, I normally don't do things flying off the page because it takes the eye away. But if these dragonflies just landed, maybe there is going to be one that's sort of kind of flying away from the scene. Or maybe flying, actually flying in that direction would work. Now, I know that I could overlap these, but I don't think I want to. Because that kind of causes me problems. So I think that arrangement, actually that's an idea. Do I want to? No, maybe I don't. Sorry, deliberating, guys. I do want to make sure that that sort of pleases me. That arrangement works for me. Don't mind the tail going off. I may not capture all of the wing. I may not do all of that. So I'm just going to use a regular plastic palette knife. You can use a metal one. I tend to, probably because I do a lot of jelly printing, I tend to steer away from metal tools because I never want to scar my jelly plates. So that's that. I'm going to be using Distress Grit Paste by Ranger, only because obviously I wanted to have that sort of gritty, sandy effect. So that's what I'm reaching for. You could do this in any texture paste that you chose. Any is your preference. Now, just while I've opened this up, I want to explain something too. A lot of people, when they have texture pastes of any sort, when they get to about halfway down the jar, they start finding that their texture paste is cracking and drying out on them. The reason is because you've trapped all of the air in here. I get some plastic wrap. Some people call it saran wrap, some call it food wrap, and I tend to push it down onto the surface of my paste, put that over the top and then put the lid on. And that way it's created a barrier between my wet surface and the air above it. So it's just the way I do it. I sort of do that with lots of stuff that I do. So just be aware that there is a way of preventing your stuff drying out. Now, I like the gritty texture to this. The hard thing is going to be trying to put this on thick enough without moving the dragonflies. And instantly that one wants to move. So I think once I've got them down in position, then I think I'm going to be okay to go over the top with stuff. But it's just getting that that initial layer down. Now I'm pressing down and then I'm moving in one movement. I like to work in the direction of, say it's flowers, I work in the direction of the stamens or the petals. If it's a leaf, I'll work in the direction of the veins. If it's something like this, I will try and do it in a logical way. So my final sweep will be along the wing, so I don't have palette knife marks going in the opposite direction. So I'm being really quite generous with this to start with. Now I've got, let's get that one sorted. And I've just noticed I need to sort that one as well. Now that I've got the majority of it covered, I know I'm safe to actually work. So I'm going to come in because I also want the texture paste in the areas that are not covering the dragonflies. Because when I lift this up, I want it to look a bit like a slab of stone, as if it's just been uncovered by me in the wilderness. There you go. Ceri was on expedition in the Amazon and found a fossilized slab. Now, we are not looking for perfect. If anything, perfect is the wrong thing to be aiming for in this. And you all know I have issues with perfectionism. So for me, this is actually quite refreshing. So I've got this in here. I'm going to do reasonably random lines. I don't want straight lines, but I do want some lines. Now, the slight problem I'm going to have is finding where I put the dragonflies in the first place. So you can see I'm going a bit thin there because I think there's a wing under there and I'll be able to pick it up. I know there's a tail there and I can see the edges of the wings here. This is the one I'm slightly concerned about because I'm not 100% certain where it is. And I don't want to go digging around trying to find it and then leaving marks. So I've got a feeling it's up there. Nothing that can't be repaired. So I'm just going to put this to one side a second just while I pull these up because I might want to push this around a bit further. Now, I'm using a picking tool just to lift it up and get it started. The what are these things called? These are made of UPO, the masks, so no problem there. They will be quite robust. Where's the end of this wing? I think there's part of the wing. There you go. That's that one out of there. Now this is the one I'm feeling a bit iffy about. Oh, that was a darn good guess. Luck is on my side. So as you can see now, I've got serious depth in this. Actually, can I lift it up for you? Let me just see if I can do this without damaging anything. So I'm just, get the book. So there, that's probably a better view for you. So you can see I've got some real depth on those dragonfly pieces. And then there's one more thing I want to do. Put that back where it is. Now my stencils are sat to one side and I need to get them in water pretty quick, but while I've still got the palette knife on the go, I want to do one more thing on some of these pages, and then we're going to have a bit of a moment and think about how do we go forward. The other thing I want to use is I've got some texture paste. It's Opaque Crackle, and again this is by Ranger, one of my favourites. I do like this crackle paste. It gives me some good results even when I spread it really thinly. So off with that. As you can see, I use the same process for both of them. So I'm going to come in with this one, and I'm just going to put patches of it. I just want it just to be enough, just to give a little bit of hint of maybe a muddy surface that's been captured as well. I don't want it all over. I'm trying not to destroy anything I've done with the dragonflies. Now, I believe that when you use crackle pastes and you use texture paste, that they are best left to dry naturally. Okay, it's my viewpoint. I don't know whether anyone else agrees with me or not, but let's put it this way. I personally have found the best results are to leave it dry naturally. Now I'm going to put a little bit over here because I want that feel to come across to the other page, although the other page is going to be done differently. Just put a little bit by there. Now this is going to be quite a textural page when it's finished, and I am hoping that it's not going to get damaged by the turning of the book. Actually, I want a little bit down there because it needs a little something. Don't ask me how I know, it's that gut feeling thing. Just needs a little bit. Right, so I will deal with putting lids on things and that afterwards. At this point, I need to hold the brakes and go, right, Ceri, stop. I'm not going to dry this with a hairdryer. I'm going to let it dry completely natural on its own overnight. So I'll continue filming in the morning. For you, it'll be 2 seconds. Good morning, everyone. Well, this is fully dry, and to say I'm happy would be an understatement. I mean, this is just, it's dried fabulous, and I love the texture that grit paste from Ranger has given me, because it really does look like stone. Now, in Kylie's original, her piece, I think I might have said this was like an A4 piece, and it had a circle with one dragonfly in the middle. Well, obviously, I've taken inspiration from that and turning it into something that I'd say works for me or represents me or is my style. So this page, if anything, I'm a little honest with you, I have to say, I'm a bit scared of doing this bit wrong now, because when it comes to colouring this, I could totally destroy this. But that could just be my anxiety talking. On this page, I wanted to do something sort of within the theme of like archaeologist, explorer, discovery, that sort of thing. And I was thinking, okay, now originally I was going to put, similar to Kylie, I was going to put strips of gel printing down the side scraps and make it work that way. But then overnight I've been thinking it through. Yeah, my brain didn't stop while I slept, I can assure you. And I think I want to do something a bit like a large cluster on here. And I've pulled some stuff out. So I'm not 100% certain. So we're going to try and do this together. So this is my original idea, having something that large. And where's it gone? And I've got some of this tissue that is like the world map, and I was thinking if I tear it down here and place it on there, that would make that look quite nice. But then I did find this, and I liked that even better, although for me it's a little bit too large, so I need to tear that down. And this, I think, is, I will say this just got to be a bit of packaging paper, so I think I'm going to go with this instead of this. This was the back of a time card that was copy dyed, so put that to one side. So I think what I'm going to do is, because I need to get the size right, and then I can pull away and move the book out the way. So where's that tear ruler go? So I'm just going to come in, and I want this, I don't want it so wide, but I don't want it hideously narrow either. So let's take that out of the way. Now this bit is, I don't know. I'm just going with my absolute gut feeling on this one, and as anyone who knows me knows, that's kind of how I create anyway. Purely because, and I know we've had this discussion before and I don't really want to labour it, but because I have anxiety issues, is that straight? Something doesn't look straight. That's not straight. Let's move this up the way so I try and tear this correctly. My anxiety always tells me everything I'm going to do is going to be rubbish or it's going to go wrong anyway. That's just the foible of anxiety for me. So, however, I try to battle it, and I think I'm winning. Whether I'll ever win, I don't know. Ever win totally, should I say. I will win, I will beat it. But so when I'm doing something like this and I'm extremely pleased with it, my inner voices are saying, you're going to destroy it, you're going to make a mess of the painting, this is going to be the wrong element. And sometimes you can find that just destroys you. So, but I'm not going to let it destroy me. So anyway, so I'm thinking something like that on there. I need to tear this down a bit. I also have a bit of brown paper that was also packaging that I think I would like to layer behind it. I did pull these out, but now looking at them, I think they're a bit too orangey for me. I did pull out some natural paper that might actually become part of that cluster without it becoming too overly laden. I was thinking a little bit of script on there too, but now looking at this, I'm not sure. Not that. Sorry, Gail. I think this is one of Gail's digitals. I think this is as well, but maybe just a piece or two of this on there. Maybe I'm thinking of it as too big. Let's just tear this down. I'm a little bit unsure because I don't really have a huge game plan. As I said, I'm just going with the flow here, trying to make this work. Trying to make real what my imagination is seeing. So I think those will go on there, although they're a bit white for me at the moment. A bit of twine, like a bit of twine, and I found a bit of canvas as well, or whatever fabric this is, but it needs to be torn down. It's besides being cut with the scissors, which is something I don't want. I want the raggediness of edges, so let's see if I can tear that a little bit. Okay, it didn't tear very well, but you know what? It gave me the effect I wanted. It gave me a rough edge. Yes. And then I actually have, you've seen these before, where I've stamped an embossed book page, and I was thinking which one works, and I think the gold one is a bit too garish. I'm not overly sure about that one either now, looking at them. Or is the gold one too garish? I think that picks up that, so let's put this one by. Still not sure about that. So with all of those elements, oh, and then I pulled out some Tracy Fox labels, which I think would work perfectly with this as well, so I'm going to have those in reserve as well. And then I've got one more element, which I've got to dig through this box for. These are some of the pressed flowers and leaves and stuff I did from my garden, I think the year before last. And I know in here, there you go, I've got ferns. So I think I'm going to put a fern on here as well, just because. It's just because. So I think what I need to do is I need to just start to build this whole thing, this whole cluster. So I'm going to move the book out the way. I'm going to put that to one side because I think that needs to be sort of... This is going to be very much about layers. Let's put it that way, right? I can't pick it up. Come on, get off there. So I'm going to push that up to the top, and we're going to work down here. I'm actually probably need to work on one of these. Now, I'm going to be using Mod Podge. Now, I make a point of saying Mod Podge because apparently I keep calling it Mod Podge. And one or two of my followers have pulled me up on it, and I do apologise. It's me and my little foibles. So yeah, Mod Podge is what I'm using. So we've got that. And I've got a brush that will reach down there. Yeah, because I'm almost at the end of this pot. I've got another one anyway. And I've got a few other things dotted around I think I want to play with as well. Okay, this is far too pristine for me at the moment. So I need to dirty up the edges a bit of this. I don't mind if it gets a little crinkly as it goes along. I don't want it too crinkly because I want it to lay flat on the page, and also with the stuff going over the top it doesn't overly matter, but I am going to put a little bit of something into it. So that's my beginning part. So the next bit for me has to be the tissue. Now I really liked this bit, but I don't like these bits at the top, and this bit at that black line is just too defined for me. So these bits are just going to be taken off. Now I could, I know, go in and put a wet brush on it and use that to tear the paper. Yep, I'm fully aware of that, people, but it's not what I was doing for. Oh look, New Zealand's down there. I used to live in New Zealand. Look, Bay of Islands, that's where I used to live, right there, right that little dot there. So, okay, that's where I spent some of my younger years, should we say. So let's get this stuck down, and then as soon as this is stuck down, I can start thinking and deliberating on the next layers. Now, I'm going to use a credit card or an old plastic door card because I need to. Oh, it's a long way down in the bottom of that pot, I can tell you. Now, I decided to use Mod Podge purely because once this is on, there's going to be other wet mediums put on this page. Like, we're going to be using sprays, we're going to be using water, we're going to be doing lots of stuff like that. So I want to make sure that this is as protected as it can be. Now, the thing is, you would say, well, I could put it on last, and I will probably wait a little while in the process before I put it on. But the trouble is that if I put it on last, it won't then be coherent with the rest of the design, if that sort of makes sense to anyone. So let's just stick that bit down there because it doesn't look like it's got anything on it. And just put a little bit of mod. This is good. Me that's calling this Mod Podge until I get into the habit of it, and then it'll be fine. So just a little bit over the top. Right, that's given me my basis. I will probably tear or trim the edges before it gets stuck on. I'm not going to worry about that yet. Now, so I'm going to stick this partially over the top of this, about by there. Let's get that. Getting it straight would be nice. I'm just going to test it up against my page. Yeah, it'll still fit. So just a little wary that I don't want this to be wider or too wide for my page, should we say. So I'm just going to put some Mod Podge over the top of this. I'll get it in the end, guys. I swear I'll get this in the end. So there you go. That gives me that much of it. Let's put my brush down a second. Just grab this and give it a bit of a clean up. Now, while that's drying off, it won't take long to dry. Mod Podge doesn't. I liked this, and I don't know whether I like the torn edge or I like the straight edge. My OCD wants the straight edge, but I'm wondering whether I don't want the straight edge. Right, for a start, it's too long for a start, so let's take that piece off. Maybe if I just tear this edge and let the universe decide what it's going to look like. I think the universe made a bad decision. It needs to be narrower than that. Okay, that's kind of where I'm going. Let's put a bit of vintage photo distress ink on this because, again, I want it to have that weathered look, should we say. My fingers are going to look like I'm a smoker, but it washes off, thank goodness. So let's put that by there, out the way. So I think this will sit nicely down the side of there. Don't mind that a little bit showing. Actually, some quiet space within the creation is a good thing in my opinion. And quiet space, I mean visually quiet, so you're not always looking at something. Your eye has somewhere to rest. And I don't mind if it's not perfectly fitting. I don't mind if it's over the top and the bottom. That's kind of where I'm going with this. Okay, I'm liking the direction we're going. Now I'm being a little bit picky with this edge because when I find one of the ferns I want to put on, I want it to be able to stick down fully onto the surface. I don't want the chance of it lifting up. Let's wipe that away from there and that away from there. Now, I do want other elements on here, and I've got some of these natural papers that I was thinking I'd like to use, but I don't want to overgild the lily. No pun intended. Sorry, having a bit of a quiet moment there. I just bought this in my local art supply store. It was just in with the papers. I mean, it didn't seem to be or appear to be any special anything. It was just where all their other papers were. So I found it and thought, oh, I'll have a piece of that. As you do. So, well, as I do anyway. So just going to get that stuck down fully. Again, protection, layers and layers and layers. So, okay, I'm liking the way this is going. Let's not overladen that one, shall we? So put those to one side in the scrap box. Now, I'm thinking these are now probably too much. Where did I put that little bit of fabric? I had a little bit of fabric too, didn't I? I've lost it. No. Oh, there it is, got it. And I've got that to go, and I've got this, and as I said, I might have Tracy Fox labels as well. I think if I use a Tracy Fox label, these are gonna not work. So let's put those to one side. Right, I think it's time. Let's see if I can carefully move this out the way. It can be drying while I'm working on something else. Okay, let's have a little look in here now. I know that there's ferns in here because we've already had a quick flash of them. So these are things that are just from my garden. I love ferns, and I grow ferns in my garden. And actually, that's the perfect one. It's exactly the right size. So this will come back in quicker than I expected. So as you can see, that's sort of where I'm going with this. And I like the fact that it's a natural element I'm adding to this, because that's a little bit of me on the page. Now, I need to actually keep this on here, don't I? This is just a little bit of me on the page now. So very happy about that. Another good layer of Mod Podge. And I'm hoping that with Mod Podge under it and over it, it will protect it. I mean, I've never stuck down real leaves before now, so this is a little bit of an experiment for me. I don't see why it wouldn't work, but everything's a gamble. So it will become a little more visible, I believe, once the Mod Podge has dried. Okay, so I'm going to leave that sit as is. As I said, we've got labels to go on there yet. I now want to work on a little element that I have in my mind. I'm just not 100% certain it's going to work, but I've got this little bit of canvas here. And before I do anything, this bit of canvas needs to be a lot dirtier than it is now. There you go. That's sort of kind of where I wanted it to go. And I don't know why, but I just really like the idea of a bit of twine on here. How I want it to be on here. I'm not, oh, actually that might work. I want to rough the twine up a bit, so if I untwist it, it'll become more fibrous for me. Because again, I've got an idea. My brain's been going overboard, and I remembered something I had that I'd actually forgotten that I had in the first place. So, right, how am I going to attach this? Okay, I know how I want it to eventually look, but how do I want it to look now? Okay, bear with me, I need to go and get a stapler. Yeah, sorry, I don't have a Tim Holtz tiny attacher. I have just a regular stapler. And that'll work because I have something that I want to do over the top of that. So that I'm thinking is going to sit there. And I quite like that. I quite like some of these strings to be a little more distressed, should we say, and pulled apart. This is just this string or twine, whatever you're used to calling it. I don't think it's called jute. I think it's just I got it from my garden centre because I use it in my garden. So I tie up my plants with it because I don't like using plastic ties on my plants, because over time this will rot down and just go back into being organic material. Whereas the plastic ties, if the plant grows too big, the plastic won't expand. It'll just choke the plant. So. Right, so now I'm going to put my brush in my damp cloth because I don't like it to dry out, and I'm going to cover up my Mod Podge just while we're doing the next bit. If I can get the lid on the Mod Podge, you can tell it's an old one. There you go. Okay, while that element is drying and that element is there, I'll show you what my next idea was. Okay, I'd forgotten about it, but I discovered it. I have a wax seal that's a Dragonfly. And I love my wax seal, and I don't use it often enough. So I need a candle, I need a little scoopy. What's this one? Oh, it's a seed for Ceri. Okay, the question is, what colour wax on here? Now, anyone's going to ask me, I would say I must have bought this on eBay. And this was probably bought on eBay. It may even have been AliExpress, to be honest, because these are quite expensive. And I went, you know what, I'm going to get the Dragonfly one. And the only place I could find it was on AliExpress. But these, I just bought a selection box of them. Okay, colours. I quite like the idea of the green, actually. I can mix them up, of course. I can put different shades in. I could pull in the copper from that Dragonfly as well. I'm wondering whether that green would just disappear. That's too bright. Maybe it is copper I need. Yes, we'll put copper in this. So if I remember right, it's about 5 pieces that I need to do a wax seal. So let's click that down. Let's light my little candle. Let's hopefully it doesn't set fire to anything. As long as I'm not easily distracted, we're okay. Let's put that safely to one side. Let's take that out of the way. That box, by the way, was just... It was supposed to be a stationery box. I can't 100% guarantee I can remember where I found that box, but I think I bought it new somewhere. I worked for the Bombay company in Chicago for a while, and I've got a feeling it could well have been there that I bought it when I was managing the store. So, and that's many years ago, guys. So don't expect me to remember anything more than that. Okay, I'm not sure how long it's going to take. It shouldn't take that long. Actually, am I going to put it onto something different? I've got my ceramic tile here. I think I might do it on my ceramic tile, purely because I'd rather do it on my ceramic tile than on my workbench. And that way, because the ceramic tile is cold, it'll probably set a little quicker as well. So my aim is I'm going to put a blob of wax right over the staple and then rest my Dragonfly seal on top of it. As you can see, it doesn't take long. I do like using wax seals. Unfortunately, as you can see, I've only got 2 of them. I haven't really selected or searched for them, to be honest, because I love the Dragonfly one and I use it for most things. And I do sometimes press other metal objects into the wax as well. It doesn't always have to be a seal I put into it. So sometimes you'll find there's some metal ornate buttons that work just as well. Give this a little stir around the end of my match. I think that will be enough. Right, I tend to get a bit panicky and work a bit quick with this, so it's going to be quiet because I'm going to be focusing on this. Okay. Right, it's on there. Now, for me, a wax seal doesn't have to be perfect. It's an element that I like to create. That's it, and just sit there now. I also don't mind that it's sat in there. I will let that cool off, and then eventually that will be scraped out, and I'll put it back into the bronze section. So let's put this to one side. That's out of harm's way. A little bit of soot there. So I'm going to move this over here. And this is still quite wet. I'm not overly bothered by that. Is that a little bit lifting up? Okay, I think I'm going to pause you guys for a couple of seconds. So here I'm back again. It's relatively dry. It's not 100% dry. Some of these wrinkles will smooth out when it dries off, but it doesn't bother me. Right, let's issue here. I want to take off the top of the tissue paper because it's just going to fold under on itself anyway. I also, while I was doing this, and some of you are probably already screaming at me about it and I just didn't realise, of course, that's New Zealand, and that's the symbol for New Zealand, the fern. So I know, there you go. So I do want to take some of this edge off a little bit because it looks a little bit too perfect for me. I just wanted to break that down a bit. I don't really want that sharp edge there. Just that little bit has changed the character of that. I also want to come in with a little bit of the distress ink and take that edge and make it a little more grungy. And then I'm going to rub this over the page itself because the whole page is just a little bit yellow for me. And I think I'm going to be putting a Tracy Fox label there. I'm not sure. We'll look at this. I'm wondering whether this feels a little straight to me. I'm wondering whether I can tear it just a little bit, not hugely, but just. I don't want it to look as manicured, if that sort of makes sense. I think that's a little better. That's more to what I was thinking. I think that'll work. So let's put that to one side. Okay, so let's see how the wax seal did. It's obviously still stuck. Oh, see, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I wanted. Just that little bit of something. Now, looking at this, I think this top edge, let's put the seal by so I don't lose that. I'm feeling this top edge is just a little bit too large because I'm thinking of popping it there. And that just feels a bit tall for me. So I'm going to see whether I can tear this without destroying it. That's better. And give that edge just a little bit of a roughing up. So I'm thinking this needs to sit about here, which appeals to me now. That's beginning to go in the direction that my imagination was taking it. Now I think for this, I would be wise to use Fabri-Tac, purely because it's fabric and it's onto Mod Podge. So I think a little bit of Fabri-Tac on there is probably a good idea. I'm just going to rub it down my finger so that it does. If it's going to soak through, it's going to soak through evenly. Okay. Liking that, like the threads on it. I don't mind that at all. There you go, so that's that bit done. Let's leave the Mod Pod, the Fabri-Tac out because I'll probably use it now. A couple of just finishing things I need to do. is I want to pull in some labels, and as I said, these are Tracy Fox labels. They're a digital. I've put the link several times in different videos, but if you go to the Etsy store or go to Etsy and look up Love Junk Journals or Tracy Fox, and Tracy is spelled Tracie, Fox. If you look up Tracy Fox, and Tracy has lots and lots of digitals, so scroll down. Or oh wow, look at that! That's got a dragonfly on it. I didn't even know that was there. Too many dragonflies. So I'm just pulling a few out as I'm chatting that might or might not work for me. So yes, scroll down, have a look at all of her labels. You're never going to go wrong with the Tracy Fox digital. They're fabulous, and she's got some wonderful, wonderful artistic pieces that I absolutely love. And I use her labels a lot, as well as I use my own as well. I quite like that actually. Okay, let's see whether there's any little ones I want to put on there instead. So yes, look up Tracy Fox and look up Love Junk Journals. You will. I wonder if that's not botanical. Oh, actually, but this is botanical. Let's pop that out as well. I don't want to spend too long doing these bits. I just want to have a quick look, because the right one will tell me it's the right one when I see it. I think I might already have the right one, to be honest with you. That might be it as well. Okay, let's just have a little offering on here and see where I would want to place stuff if I use them. Now, I will be going around with vintage photo. I'm actually going to snip off the corners of this one because I think it would benefit from having a little bit of snip around the edges. Bad fussy cutting on my behalf. I don't mind that corner is squared and the others are not. This is sort of the feel I was going for. Right. So, botanical specimen. You could stick that down there. That pleases me. I like that. I like the size of that one. I quite like that one. I think it's going to be those three. I like to work in threes. Anyone who knows me knows it's threes with me. So I think they're all fussy cut well enough because I've already tickled that one up. Just going to come in and give them a little more character, as Gail would call them. A little bit more aging. And then I think this element is actually finished, and I can set it to one side to do the basic painting and coloration of the pieces. Then I'll stick this one down, and then we'll continue with a few more elements of colouring, should I say. Now I'm using this purely because I think this is probably the best glue to use for this. Hopefully I'm in shot for all of this. Oops, don't knock that over, Griffiths. So I like to do this sort of thing. If I see someone else's creation and it inspires me, I love to take that inspiration and let my imagination play with it. If anyone ever does that to my videos and my creations, I always take it as a huge compliment, and hopefully the people whose initial videos I use as inspiration for my work are also complimented by it. And as I've said to you already a couple of times, I always get permission of the original creator, and I always try to share everything they've done in my description box, which, as I remember, is down there. When it comes to colouring, right, this is going to be a little bit hit and miss now. Kylie actually used on this section, on her stonework, she used a product I wasn't familiar with, but it looked like a pigment powder. And I actually have pigment powders, and these are called brushos. So I'm going to use those on here. I also want to bring in some of this sort of colour, and I've got, where have I put it? I've got these two Liquitex, which I've got yellow oxide and red oxide, and they're acrylic ink. And I think a little bit of this with a bit of spray and a brush to move it all around might be just what I need around some of the other areas of this before I get stuck into things. So I think I'm going to start with the lighter of the two. There's going to be water involved. I've just got a water spritz bottle here. Take the lid off so it's ready to go. Now, although these are acrylic inks, they do move with water. So I don't want huge amounts, but I just want touches of it. And I'm sort of focusing where I put some of the crackle, because it will work wonderfully in the crackle, I'm hoping. So I think that's enough of that. Coming, oh, sun's come out. Hello, sun. If I get that moving. Now, I'm likely to put it on and then blot it back off again, depending on how it's all moving on me. I love doing this, but it also terrifies me at the same time, because this is where things go wrong. I don't mind it moving over the dragonflies. I'm going to come in. I've got some kitchen towel. I'm just going to take some of this off, because I don't want my whole book to get waterlogged, and I don't want huge intensity of colour. I just want pieces on here, because I'm going to build. We're going to build big time. Well, we're not going to build big time, we're going to build. So now we're going to go in with the red oxide Liquitex. Now, I may do it in the same places, I may do it in slightly different places. It's all about getting the movement going around here. Now, I'm remembering that the middle of this is going to have something on it as well. We've just created that piece, so that's where that's going to go. Right, lid on that, because I'm notorious for knocking things over. Give everything a bit of a spritz so it doesn't start setting on me, and then I can work on moving things around. The reason I'm not worried that my paper is going to get too wet is, remember, I prepped it before I started with gesso, and that helps seal it. It helps give it a bit of a barrier between the different elements I'm using. Right, again, I'm going to come in and blot out. I just want layers on here. As you can see, I like the way it's picking up colour. Hopefully I'm in screen. Well, I am now. And I think that's enough of that. I don't want to add too much into that of these two colours. Pop those by. Now, I did have a bronze. Is this bronze? Rich copper, which, knowing that we've got these elements in here, I did want to put just a little hint of it. So I'm probably going to deal with just bits in the corners. Try not to be too systematic and methodical with it. A metallic means it will still move when I spritz it. It doesn't move as well as the others, I must admit, but that's why I've got a brush here, because the brush means I can move it around a bit. And I'm just looking for a hint of, I'm not looking to make a metal page. And as before, I'm going to blot off. because it's not only about adding colour for me, it's about subtracting colour as well. Right, let's clean up a bit of there. So I think that's given me a start of what I'm looking for. This is a bit I'm nervous about now, guys, because this is where it could all go very, very wrong. So, right, but be brave, Griffiths, be brave. So I'm going to pull in some of these brushos. Now the brushos come in these little pots. I decant them into little glitter shakers, purely because it's easier for me to do it. So I know there needs to be a little bit of yellow. Now a little bit of this dust goes a really long way. I need to remember that. That's probably more than I need anyway, but it's a dry pigment dust. I want to put a hint of leaf green in there as well, because I know that yellow and green are okay together. I'll have a little bit of that over there. And then I'm going to pull in a little bit of brown, because we're looking for that earthy tone. I do hope I don't mess this up. I'm really loving that at the moment. I'll put a little bit of that over there as well. And what was that colour? I don't want to do that. Okay, let me have a think. Part of me wants to add an orange to it because we've got the green and the orange. No, let's stay with it. I'm getting carried away because you never know what it's going to look like until it's done. So cross your fingers, guys, and see how this is going to work out. So the water activates the pigment. And I think it's soaking straight into the paste. So I'm going to have to do quite a bit of spritzing on this to get it to move around. I hadn't thought about that. It's interesting, but it's not what I was expecting it to do, I must admit. I'm just moving it all around. Well, it's turning out okay. I'm all right with that. It's a bit white, a bit dark. So I'm going to come in. I've got some Distress Stained White, and just I don't know. My gut feeling was to knock it back with something, so that's what I've just done. Just pale it down a bit, and then get a bit of kitchen towel if I can find it, and take some of it out. Okay, it's not the colour I wanted yet. It's a bit too white for me, but the other colour was a bit too dark. So I just want to get this side running as well a little bit, just so I've got something going on. Try to keep it out of the spine, even though the spine is protected. I don't really want it to be soaking wet. Let's just let that sit for a second. Okay, so thinking on this side, the yellow was a bit too yellow. I do think my gut instinct for orange was probably the right instinct. I do think we needed a bit more brown. Just to bring that down in an earthy colour. And my gut keeps telling me I need to actually put red into this. I think that's probably the wrong idea, but I'm going to do it anyway because it's what my gut is saying to do. And if I've got red in it, I want to put some green into it because green and red make brown. Well, they do in my world anyway. Right. Again, I'm going to do what I did before, spritz, move it round, and then probably blot it off. Yeah, the sand texture paste or grit paste really likes to soak up any moisture that goes on it, so that was unexpected for me. Let's get this moving. I don't mind a muddy sort of brown. I don't mind that sort of coloration. I'm okay with all of that. I do like the red in there actually. Let's just take that bit out of there because that's just swamping it all. Now, when these dry, they do dry a bit paler. So just so you were aware. I'm just going to come in and lift some of that off. Hands are going to be fun, aren't they? It's getting there. I'm still not 100% certain of this one. I'm just wondering what it is it needs. I think I'm going to pull in some more of this acrylic yellow oxide because it's not got that sandstone feel that I was hoping to get. So put some of that into that. If I can get the base colour right, then I can work on filling in the details of the dragonflies with some of the other powders. Let's get this moving around again. It just doesn't want to move, does it? Note to self, if I'm doing this technique, grit paste is probably not the best one for it, in my humble opinion anyway. I am getting there though, I must admit. This is more the direction I wanted it. I think I just want to come in while that's still wet and add some brown. So I think that will give it the earthy feel I was looking for. I must admit, it scares the absolute everything out of me putting this much water onto a page. But I know through experience that it does actually work. Come in and take that out of the spine because I'm not wanting that down there anyway. I'm just going to blot from one to the other. Actually, why don't I just do this? There you go. Don't know whether that'll added something, didn't it? That's okay. That transfers some of the colour across. That's better. I think I need to dry it because, as I said, it's a bit deceptive because the colours change when they dry. I do want more colour into the dragonflies though. And I'm wondering whether I need to be really brave and go in a completely different direction. Let's give that a bit of a spritz because it's just going to annoy me if I don't spritz that. There you go. Can you still see? You can. Right. The inside of the dragonflies need something. I keep being drawn to green. What sort of greens have I got? I've got emerald green, which is way too green. Let's just go back to, not take the entire lid off. Oh, the button came off the top, that must be stuck back on. Oh, I just had a thought. Why don't I try doing it with that metallic? Because that matches that, and if I can get it into the dragonfly bodies, maybe that's what I'm looking for. Okay, I'm going in, folks. This could be good. This could be an absolute disaster, but I've got a feeling this might be what I'm looking for. I don't know what I'm looking for. That's part of the problem with doing these processes, is I don't actually know until I see it. So let's come in and spritz that so it can move. Please don't tell me I'm running out of water. I do have another spritz bottle handy, don't worry. Right. Will that move yet? It's a bit of moving. I don't want to make it too waterlogged. I mean, it's already waterlogged, but I don't make it even more waterlogged. I'm trying to remember that these are not meant to be dragonflies that are alive. They're meant to be dragonflies that are fossilized. So I'm trying to remember that fossils wouldn't naturally have a whole pile of colourful wings and things. Right, that sort of gave me what I was looking for. I'm going to take some of it out. That's better, I feel. I think I'm going to like that. Right, I think what I need to do now, guys, is I'm going to put you on pause for 2 seconds again. And I'm going to get in and dry this thoroughly, because I think you will be surprised, as I will, how much this is going to change once it's dried. But I'm not upset by what I'm seeing. I quite like where it's gone, so bear with me for 2 seconds. So here I am back again. It's not 100% dried, but then I know I've got more wet processes to go on here. But I did quite like it. Did push it back into the right sort of coloration I was looking for. And funnily enough, as I was hair drying it, the inks and paints moved around within the wing, which actually I'm quite happy about. I wasn't expecting it to do that. A couple of things I do want to do is I'm going to take this again, and this time I'm going to take it and I want to do a couple of splatters on it, just because it'll just add something to it. And I'm going to do the same with black later on. All the crusties have come all over that, so I'll wait till it's fully dry to actually do that. Something else I'm being bothered by slightly is the edges are now looking too light. So I've got one of these distress crayons, which I know is water soluble, by Tim Holtz. And this is Vintage Photo, and I'm going to come in and darken up the edges and then use a damp brush to actually pull them in, pull that darkness in. And I'm going to do it on both sides because I want, how do I turn this? There you go. I don't use these very often. It'll give me continuity across the pages then. They are water soluble, so I do have to be careful because they're water soluble, and unless I seal it, they will always be water soluble. So if I go in with any sort of sealant over the top that's too liquid, I'm going to have a problem. So there you go, just come in with a wet paintbrush. I'm probably going to come in with a damp cloth and blot some of this off afterwards as well, just to blend a little bit more. But this is getting more of the grungy feel I was hoping to get with this. And I don't think grungy is the right word I was looking for, to be honest, but I think you know what I mean. It's sort of the aged look thing that I was looking for. Kylie, if you're watching this, look what you started. Look what you've done. Right, let's put that to one side. Right, I'm going to get my damp cloth, the one that I use instead of a wet wipe, and just come in and pull some of that back out, just while it's still able to be lifted. See, I told you this cloth wouldn't stay white very long, didn't I? I think I just want to give that a little bit of okay, that looks a bit like crackled paint on there now. Now I keep being drawn to an idea, and to be honest, I'm not sure it's the right idea, but it might be the right idea. First of all, I want to put some black splatters on this in a little while, but that's because I just like black splatters. However, I'm wondering whether teal is a colour I need to put into this. And I don't know why it's calling to me, but I think as I do it, I mean, what's that? That's not the right colour. Okay, so I've got deep turquoise, or I've got alcohol ink, which is stream. There's something that's just telling me I should. So you know what? It's only paper. It's only my time. And if it doesn't work, I'll still share the video with you, because we can all learn from my mistakes if it is a mistake. So I'm going to come in. I'm not 100% certain what I'm looking for in this. There's something there. It's the way my brain works, guys. I'm not apologizing for it, because I'm grateful for my imagination. I don't always make the perfect decisions. Goodness knows I'd be a millionaire if I did. But sometimes things just work if you're brave enough to do them. So now this will get some blotting, and blotting means that it will get paler. So I've gone silent because I'm absolutely watching where everything is rolling or running, because I don't want this to mess up. Okay, I'm absolutely loving that now. Now I have to be really, really cautious as to how I get this off. I think I'm going to grab some napkins. I've got a whole ton of napkins. I've got so many napkins, it's scary. I just want to take bits away without taking everything away. And I've got more control with the napkin. I think it's probably because it's not a thin sheet. It's a square that has got some robustness to it as I move it around. I think that's what I was looking for. Some of it off the page. Right, I want to put some of those white splatters on here again, because I think that will be, that's what it needs. Just gives it that mottled wall effect. I've got my fan brush somewhere. Where's the fan brush gone? There's the fan brush, right. Okay, I'm going to try putting black ink on here. This is just Colorex ink. I just want bits. And what I want is, I'm not looking for the splatters to be 100% visible. I'm looking for them to be almost mottled wall. I must admit, I don't actually know where this idea is all coming from, so I think that's it. Okay, right. At this point, I have to let this have some serious drying, because it's just way, way, way too wet. Let's give that a couple if I can get on there. Right, so it's dry. Well, it's dry-ish. I can feel by the temperature of the pages it's not 100% dry, but we've put a lot of water on these pages, so I would imagine this is going to be fully dry until tomorrow. But it's dry enough for me to continue working. So as I said, I wanted to now put some detail into the back of this. I like the way that the intensity of the teal actually did stay quite powerful. I like the way the bronze or the copper or whatever it was actually stayed within the dragonflies when I dried it. I like the crackle, and even though some of you are probably saying, well, why did you put all the previous layers in? I can just faintly see the dragonfly there, see part of a wing there. There are other bits that come through here. I'm not sure it's picking up on the camera, but I can actually see the stuff through it. And to be honest with you, part of creating art is the journey you're on, and part of things like collage or art pages are the layers that add the interest to it. Like this was originally blue, but now it's blue with a hint of yellow and copper on top of it, and it all gives it that depth. So I'm going to take a stamp, one of the Tim Holtz ones. What's this one called? I think the other half is over here. I don't know, the other half of it's gone. Oh, it's Ledger Script CMS 241. It comes as one stamp. I had to cut the plastic in two because basically I use these plastic envelopes currently, although I'm about to change that for my stamp storage, and so I couldn't get it in there. So I'm just going to use that. I'm using archival black. I'm not going to put it on the stamping block. I'm just going to use it as is. Is there a right way up or a wrong way up on this one? I never quite know. So I'm just going to come in now. I'm not looking for perfect stamping. I'm looking for that sort of stuff. I want elements on here. Now I don't really want to go over the rock because the rock wouldn't have stamping on it. But I don't mind the darkness around it. As you can see, little bits here and there are not going to make hide nor hair to anyone as a difference. It's this page I'm more focused on. So just adding that few layers of something in the background. Hopefully I don't break the spine of my book with all of this moisture and everything, but you know what, everything can be cured. I'll just brace it from the other side so I have. I think just this little bit by here. I think I want that bit by there. There you go, that's enough. Let's just do a little bit by there as well. Okay, enough. Knowing when to stop is a big challenge of mine, but you know what, we're getting there. So now we've got our page ready, let's bring in the topper piece, which is that piece there, and I think now that works for me. This colour pulls in this colour. This colour matches all of this colouring. I like the fern here. It calms the page a bit. It could be that these could be two separate pieces. So that's where I'll put those. Wonder where those went. I could, if I'd have wanted to, have just made that as a page on its own. That could have been a page on its own. It would have needed something else if it was a page on its own. But together, I think they actually work quite well. So I think it's down to us just to stick this down now. And once it's done, that's it, guys. I think we're done. I mean, I am tempted. Ooh, I wonder. I think once I've stuck this down, I'm going to mask this slightly by putting some kitchen paper or napkin on it, and I might do the odd black splatter because this I love, but it still needs impact. If I did the splatters and stuck this on, it just wouldn't look right. So just trust me on that one. So I think we're going to just move. Oh, there. I keep wondering where I put all the napkins. I was trying to absorb any moisture that I could. So I'm going to turn this over and I'm going to put this on with gel medium. The gel medium you saw me using before. Oops, that's a hairdryer. Don't touch the hairdryer, Griffiths. So I'm just going to come in and actually I wonder I can just squirt it straight onto here. This tube is so nearly out. So nearly done and dusted. And I'm going to put a reasonable amount on the back of this because look what it's going to have to be stuck on. Now I have no problems or no fears that it's going to come off because I've seen Froyle Davis stick stuff down with this, and once it's stuck. But I want to make sure that it is fully stuck. And I'm also going to put it up in the corner slightly. So I don't necessarily need the string to be stuck down, but because I'm brushing around it, some of it might get stuck into place. Doesn't bother me if it does. So I'm just going to use the brush just to press it down so it's fully in contact. I don't mind if it curls up slightly, that would add character as well. I did contemplate going in with, with some grey or black and put shading into it, but I actually don't think it needs it. I quite like the way this looks. I could go in and put shadow into it. I could do a lot of things with it, but I don't feel it needs it. And sometimes you can get carried away with doing techniques because they're techniques. Not everything needs every technique in the world. Let's get that under there because I don't feel that's going to stick. There you go. So, right, so I'm going to have to cut the end off this and scoop that out, I feel. Right, brush needs to go into water. Now, where's my fan brush? There goes the fan brush. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some black acrylic paint and I'm going to do my splatters with black acrylic paint. So make sure these are pressing down. As I said, I'm not overly bothered because I know the body of it will always be stuck down because behind it is just, well, it's just behind it. So let's wipe that off. So let's move this over to one side a second while I show you what I'm going to do. So I've got my acrylic block here, not my acrylic block, what I'm talking about, my ceramic tile. I'm just taking a little bit of black acrylic paint and I'm going to take my paintbrush and I'm actually just making it more liquid because that way it will splatter better. Okay, so that's what I've done to one side. Let's just leave that there while I pull this back in. Now, I want to protect these, and I don't need to protect it 100%. Excuse the tearing noises. I don't need to protect it 100%, but I do want to protect it to a certain degree because I don't want black splatters going across certain elements of it. I don't mind little bits of it getting a black splatter, but I'd rather not get the detailed stuff too covered up. Let's just maybe that little bit there. So as you can see, it's just basically jigsaw puzzle pieces is what I'm doing. Just, it'll all get lifted off in a second anyway. Right, there you go. Now, I want to make sure that I have liquid on my brush, but not so much liquid. And then I gently tap it down onto my finger. And it's the way I found works best for me. You can get splatter brushes that will do it for you, but I don't have one. I think that is probably enough, except just up there. So I just want to take a few seconds to look at that. I think I'd just like to add a little bit more of the white that I had earlier on because I just want to give it some more multicolours within there. Just all of those layers of interest, all of those visual impact there. And then very carefully, where's my picky tool? Where's it gone? I want to lift these off. I don't want to run my finger across the picture because if there's any black dots, I could smear them. But see, just by masking that, it's kept that relatively clean for me, which is exactly what I wanted. So let's put the needle in there. So let's take these out of here, just to give you a better idea of what we're looking at. Have a little clean up before any paint splatters dry on my mat. Mind you, my mat's getting pretty messy anyway, but it's a working mat. It's my art. It's what I do. So you know what? I'm okay with that. So I think I'm really happy with this. It doesn't look like Kylie's. It was never going to look like Kylie's. But if I just bring it up so you have a little bit of a closer look at some of it. But I like it. It's got some definite texture to it. It's got detail. I like the way that those dragonflies just settled into the background. I like all of it, really. I think putting the teal in, or this darker greeny blue colour, was definitely a good move. I must admit, my heart was in my mouth when I did it, because I was like, what the heck am I about to do? So hopefully you enjoyed that, guys. Big shout out to Kylie Coo for the inspiration. Thank you. Hopefully I did you justice. I certainly took it and spun it into my own way of doing things. So, and I know you would expect me to do that anyway. I want to make sure everyone goes to the description box. There's a grey V there, or it says read more. In there will be a link to Kylie Coo's original video of this. Please give her a shout out. She does have a YouTube channel, I believe. Not a YouTube. She does have a Facebook channel, maybe even a Facebook group. I'm not sure. Go and show her some love. Support her. It's a great way to help artists reach a wider audience, and reaching an audience is just such a good thing, because then so many more people get to enjoy the art they create. So I think the last thing from me is this one. I'm Ceri the Crafter, Ceri the Crafter, and until next time, we'll see you then. Bye bye now.